We are dealing with the biggest border crisis since America had borders. Texas will have built more of the Trump border wall than even Trump built in the state of Texas. The President of the United States is not enforcing the laws that are already on the books. He does not need more laws. He has the tools in his toolbox to do exactly what Texas is doing, and that's to deny illegal entry into the country.
That was Texas Governor Greg Abbott speaking at the border yesterday, announcing new plans to expand Operation Lone Star, while slamming President Biden, saying that Congress does not need to pass any new bills to secure the border. The Biden administration now reportedly considering using executive action to deter illegal immigrants at the southern border. Just last week, President Biden claimed he had no more power to defend the border. Watch.
I've said it for the last 10 years.
Have you done everything you can do with executive authority, or is there more you could do absent
That's not all I can do.
Joining me now is Texas Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne. She's a member of the House Ways and Means and Small Business Committee's Congresswoman. So once again, Governor Abbott is trying to secure the border. We've had legal pushback from President Biden. President Biden acts like there's nothing that he can do when he could have signed executive orders months ago.
Yeah, well, he signed executive orders from day one, which has caused the problem. He took away the Remain in Mexico policy. He immediately stopped construction of our border. He, let Mayorkas know that to basically ignore federal law. I mean, he has used executive order over and over again to make the border less safe. So the idea that somehow now he can't use executive order to do the exact same thing that he's done to cause the damage is ridiculous. And now his office is coming out and saying, well, now that the Senate bill didn't pass, now we're going to use executive order. He knew he always had that authority, but he also knew that the work that had already been done during the Trump administration and those policies that were put in play were working. You don't need a whole new immigration bill. You don't need any new laws. You simply need to enforce the laws that we have. And that's what you've seen Governor Abbott do. And as a result of that, the crossings at their Texas border have gone down considerably. We had over 71,000 apprehensions in December and just over 16,000 in January because the state of Texas stepped up. I quite honestly think that Abbott's embarrassing Biden into action, and Biden is recognizing his poll numbers are tanking and is finally trying to do something about it, but only because we have an election coming up in November.
Well, you and your colleagues on the Republican side, both in the House and the Senate, have taken a lot of heat, to be honest, this week about the fact that Senate bill got tanked. How have you responded to that? Obviously, you have heard that criticism being thrown at you, saying, because now the Democrats are saying, well, look, we gave them a bill. They wanted border security. We handed it to them on a silver platter, and then they backed out. How do you respond to that?
Look, well, one, I would say the House actually passed a bill with H.R. 2 that they have been sitting on since May. If they were legitimately concerned with protecting our border, they would have passed H.R. 2, the Border Security Act of 2023. They didn't. But the fact is that they don't need another bill to be able to secure our border. We had security on our border under the Trump administration. All they had to do was continue those policies. They didn't on purpose, and now they're trying to, out of desperation for an election in November, change the narrative. But
right.
People understand, as are reflected in Biden's tanking polling numbers.
Yeah, they've seen the writing on the wall. That's the best way to say it, because we have no wall. Anyway, sorry, pun intended. Let's talk about it's just it's the first thing Biden did. He comes in and he's like, no more wall. All right, I want to talk about what's happened here in New York with these migrants. So NYPD has just released this body cam footage. It shows the attack on these two officers by a mob of illegal immigrants that happened in Times Square just a few days ago. Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg says he has now secured indictments against these 7 suspects, but that was 2 weeks after several of them were arrested and released on bail. Congresswoman, finally some were arrested in Arizona after they got on buses and hightailed it out of this city. Your reaction?
Look, I think what you're seeing is you have 10 million illegal immigrants who've crossed our border, and that's only the ones that we know about. We know we've got over 300 who have been on our terrorist watch list. We know that we are catching thousands and thousands that are coming in from China and from countries that want to do us harm. This is merely the tip of the spear. When you look at the DUIs that are happening from people who are not supposed to be here and the families that are being murdered, you see the murder and rapes on a regular basis from, again, people who aren't supposed to be in our country. This is a Biden administration who has caused this. And when you see our police being brutally attacked in the middle of the day, and then you've got immigrants who are being let go with no bail, we don't have IDs on them, we don't know where they're going, and they're flipping the camera and basically flipping the country off on their way out with this entitlement mentality, this has been created. Yeah. We could easily stop it within the tomorrow if we were just to enforce our laws. But they're not, the Biden administration is specifically not doing it. It's not doing it on purpose. And every single American is seeing these images, and it's frightening.
Yeah, no, because they don't care. I mean, you're flipping the bird to the camera. Joe Borelli, jump in here.
Congresswoman, here in New York, we have this video of these migrants attacking the police officer. We have another incident where migrants fired a shot in a retail store right in Times Square just 2 days ago. And despite all of that, people still love to vilify Governor Abbott for what he's doing, not just with busing folks here, but also what he's doing with razor wire and barricades on the border. Can you educate a New Yorker like me about how the politics is playing out in Texas for Governor Abbott?
Look, I mean, I think you're seeing people who are supporting Governor Abbott. We just had a press conference in D.C. with just the congressional members from Texas, 100% standing behind the governor. It's pathetic that he has to spend state funds that we're already spending tax dollars to D.C. to do the job. Last year alone, they had to spend over $5 billion from the Texas fund. This year, they've already budgeted $6.43 billion. To handle it. He's doing the job the federal government not only has caused, but they're trying to prevent him from even protecting his own borders. But again, I think what you're seeing is he's embarrassing the president by just showing what happens when you enforce our laws. He has been able to decrease the crossings from 71,000 again last month to just over 16,000 this month, only using the laws that are on the books. And the Biden administration could do it. They're not doing it. And I think you're seeing all these governors from across the country support him because they recognize it's not just a Texas issue. Yeah, this is across the country.
Yeah, every state's a border state, and in particular in these blue cities, which we are sitting in right now, we have seen the effects of that. I do want to switch gears really quick with you. Special Counsel Robert Hur opting not to charge President Biden for willfully retaining classified documents. He thought a jury wouldn't convict, quote, an elderly man with a poor memory. New York Congresswoman Claudia Tenney is now calling to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove the president from office. Watch her.
So if he can't stand trial, he certainly can't carry out the duties of President of the United States and Commander-in-Chief of our armed forces. You either have to prosecute him or he has to be removed under the 25th Amendment.
Your response to that?
I agree with her wholeheartedly. We've been calling for this president to step down for years. I mean, understanding the fact that he has a declining memory is a nice way to put it. But we cannot afford a weekend at Bernie's presidency, which is what we have seen. It is completely dangerous for not every American, but for the future of our country. This is a man who's got our nuclear codes when we are on the precipice of a number of wars, and he's our commander-in-chief. It also, I think, shows you a completely two-tiered justice system. When they are going after President Trump for the same charges, and they are giving this man a pass because they're saying that he is elderly and he has a poor memory and is sympathetic. This is on the world stage. Get the man the help he needs, but for God's sake, get him off the world stage. The rest of the world is watching this, and we could not look more weak.
Yeah, no, and we've got several op-eds out in the Wall Street Journal this morning that say the exact same thing. Mike Pompeo saying that, Mike Pence saying that we are at a perilous juncture right now as a nation. And if we appear weak on the world stage because we have a weak president, that is bad for the nation. Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne, it's great to see you, Congresswoman. Thank you.